I guess that means I'm one of those wrinkly people that think about the future. The guy was talking about this morning. Hello, it's great to be here. When I was little, and I was little once, one of the conversations I had with my father was to do with flight. And he said to me, do you know that, by the way, that should be running as a video? It is, thank you. Did you know that pilots had a prayer? And I said, what, you mean they pray that they don't crash into a busload of orphans or something? And he said, no, they had a prayer. The very fact is that those of them that fly see this as a fantastic privilege, as an amazing thing. And with the privilege comes the responsibilities. And so at a very young age, I began to think about what that was going to mean as I moved forward. Now, I'm going to use a gestural remote now. You saw that amazing presentation. Watch me do this live. Change the slide, please. Check it out. No, really. It gets better. That's the world I grew up in. I'm 58. I'm a mid-boomer. And that is D&AD Pilot of the Future from my brother's annual, 1952, of the Eagle Annual. If you look, it says Mars 1997. 1952's idea of 1997, so again, a previous speaker referred about, isn't it strange how the future happens to be from the past? We were going to be flying to Mars in a spaceship, but we were going to be walking up a gangplank to get to it. And over here, you'll see we're going to have a lovely leather steamer trunk with Mars written on it. And our uniforms were going to be probably RAF uniforms of the 1950s painted green. We're going to say things like wizard. But I want you to look at the color of the sky because that's the most important bit of this picture. It's relentlessly blue. Post-war Britain might have been in ruins partly, but the idea of the future was a very positive thing. And now we tend to have a slightly more nihilistic view or look at all the problems that we've got. But crawling out of the ruins after the Second World War was about things getting better and better and better. And this sense of optimism struck root in me. In fact, I've often said that it's incompatible with the process of design, because that's what I do, to be anything other than positive about what you do. Because if I wake up in the morning and I do a bad hair gel commercial, who gives a sod? But if I wake up and go, no, I'm going to do a bad train today, I'm going to visit 1 million devils on you for 50 years. So slowly but surely, a fear starts to crawl over the mind of the product designer, industrial designer, that they're not guessing the future because they're doing the next generation. They're actually doing it. They're concretizing it. And then you really start to wake up screaming in the middle of the night. So I want to show you some of the things that have gone wrong in what I do, because they were the indicators, as again one of the previous speakers commented, we learn more by our mistakes. I think it was Lord Millamore that referred to that. The fact that when we do make mistakes, we learn. Actually, some of us don't learn when they make mistakes. So here's some that do. Gestural remote. I can do it, I can make it do anything, right? Okay. The great thing about, is there some sound? The great thing about the dream state that I was put into, this idea of positivistic future, is it leaches into what you do every day. This is an airship. It's a hotel 1/4 kilometer tall. It's not on the ground, it's in the air. It's a floating hotel. Instead of going on your holiday in a plane with your knees in your mouth and then getting to the holiday destination, this sucker competes with Jamaica. And you don't know where it's going because it navigates with the winds like a balloon does. It's not powered in any direction. So it moves around by different flight levels. And the solar panels on the outside split the moisture in the clouds into oxygen and hydrogen. It keeps the hydrogen for lift, and it puts the oxygen back into the atmosphere. So this thing is actually arguably moving towards a positive footprint thing. Now, technologically, you'd think that must be incredibly advanced. That's how we can actually get to be doing this in the next couple of years. But the answer is we could have done most of that 80 years ago. 80 years ago. We just didn't. Now, the perfect storm that two speakers have spoken about already today is something actually quite extraordinary. Probably for only the second time in 500 years, our imagination is limiting what we do, not the technology. It's the imagination that made those wonderful things happen that we've just seen there. Someone had to think it through. And where the imagination comes from is terribly exciting. Gestural again. Learning number one. As I came up through college, I got terribly excited. In the 1970s, there was something called Design for Need that happened at the Royal College of Art. Victor Papineau, the idea of actually doing something decent rather than diapers for parakeets, I think, was one of the examples. And I got involved with UNESCO on the idea of a disaster shelter, something that could be dropped by aircraft in pallets of several. And I got this thing, it would open on its own, and it would have this weight so that it would descend like a parachute. It's a miracle, isn't it? It would land, and there would be instant village. And we made them, and we tested them. And they worked perfectly. Down they came, like blossoms, like saviors, like angels, and they landed, and there they were. And the people that were in the desolate area took out their pangas and cut them to pieces, and used the pieces to build what they already had. Lesson number one, culturally sensitizing to what one is doing is crucially important if you're going to move forward properly. So integrating that thing sounds obvious, but most things do not do this. They crash from one culture to another, and they leave a certain amount of detritus in their wake. I'm going to do a different remote now. Okay. One of my favorite designers is a bloke called David Constantine. He's paraplegic from a diving accident, and he designs stuff, wheelchairs in particular, mobility devices. And he told me it's a wonderful story about the fact that he designs things so it's mostly instructions, and if you ship the stuff to Africa, it's how to do it with local materials, and he only then provides the bits that they cannot do, like a complex wheel bearing. And this then led me with a Design in Daba initiative here, 10 by 10, that myself and some guys in a South African agency called XYZ got together, and we were looking at the whole idea of a crutch. And so what we did was, we made the bit that does everything, i.e. the adjustment, the suspension, the grip, the ergonomics that come with it, into something only this big, and that would be made in South Africa by stimulating a production facility there. But that the thing that you normally associate with adjustment, which is the stick, that you would get that locally wherever you wanted. So it could be literally a stick, or it could be a piece of carbon fiber if you want to walk around looking like you're recovering from a sports injury. But basically, this is a liminal thing. It's something that sits between two things. It's an attempt to try to find ways to get the efficiencies and the thinking and the ergonomics, if you like, of the advanced thought mixed in properly and adequately with what goes there. Now, when David was doing his work, he found that there was a benefactor, a wonderful guy in America, who sends hundreds of wheelchairs to Africa every year. And one of the problems that David pointed out was, when these arrive, they're not quite right from a terrain point of view, but it annihilates the local manufacturing or appropriate manufacturing technologies that they have there. So this collision happens. And that's it's the second part of that learning. I'm trying to find ways to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you. This is probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It chokes me every time I look at it. It's a plastic bag. But it's a plastic bag that if I put it into a puddle filled with pathogens and coliforms and God knows what, in a filthy stream somewhere, and leave it, then that water will migrate through, by osmosis, into the inside, and inside will be pure, potable water. Now, if that isn't beautiful, I don't know what is. It really brings a lump to my throat. And I tried to find, this was a millennium product with the Design Council at the turn of the century. I can't find it anywhere. I've rung it, I looked on the web, I can't find it. Any of you guys find this? The nearest I could get was that it was Switzerland, I think cellophane were looking into it. But no one's come back and said, this is everywhere. This is, if you like, distributed cleansing of water. And I get very excited about that idea, about enablement at a micro level. Next one, please. I'm going to show you something and I want you to tell me immediately what it is. This refers back to the previous speaker's comments. Are you ready? It's got to be straight away. What is it? Are you sure? Look carefully. You're absolutely, it is a typewriter, by the way. Are you sure? You sure it's a typewriter? You go to court and claim you've just seen a typewriter? Next slide, please. That is what happens when you show it to a bunch of 8-year-olds in a class and they say that. And you laugh. And you laugh. It's incredibly serious. There are fault lines built into evolution in a way that we have not seen for a very long time, and they're massively compressed. They're rolling one after the other. The fact is that the people who are my age are investing and making the decisions in the businesses, but the market is that. Now, if that's your starting point for that, where does that lead? Brand new, wonderful stuff, what I call emergent behavior. It has a different technical meaning in science. If we watch what people do, if we watch what very young people do, that's where the future is. That's in the emergent behavior. Next slide, please. This bloke is demonstrating, after a focus group, don't worry, there's no sound, about how brilliant this stair lift feature is. It's a lock that means that he can lock his stair lift so his grandchildren won't injure themselves on it. He says it's the best thing he's ever seen. He says, do not get rid of this feature. He cannot do it. But he doesn't know he cannot do it. Because that loss of capability is a slow change in the background. And even if he did know that he couldn't do it, he probably wouldn't tell you. What do you think old age is? Something coming to all of you real soon is what it is. And so if I listen, I get it wrong. If I watch, I get something different. Now, God knows how many millions and millions of pounds are spent on consumer research asking somebody in Croydon in November, after you've given them a Kit Kat and 20 quid, what they want. They're going to tell you because you've paid them. The problem is, it may not be true. Next slide. I love to do this. We love to do ethnography. I love to watch what people do. I always turn the sound off first because I want to see what people are actually doing and then compare it with what they're actually saying. That lady, top middle, is about to do something remarkable, which I'm going to come back to. But in the meantime, how many of you take sugar in your coffee? Hands up. Oh, gosh, that's not very 21st century, is it? All right, you, next clicker, please. You guys use that, yeah? Show me how you open it. Come on, demonstrate. Wrong, 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 wrong. Even you're wrong, gentlemen. Is that correct? Lady in the third row, will you stand up, please, and do that, yeah? Watch. Do it again. We all do that. And there's nothing on the wrapper that says, place between forefinger and thumb and shake daintily. Look, what we say and what we do are completely different, and you do not have access to what you do. So if I ask you, you're going to skid turn me into something else. Compare what we actually do with what we say we do, and in that hole there is the emergent behavior. And that's where the future is actually forming. Next, please. I spotted the lady in the previous film. Can I have sound, please?
Just cut it halfway along.
Watch what she does.
Okay. Tip out what I need to use, and then just gather it up, screw it round, and just pull it through. It saves.
I see.
It just saves all your peas falling out.
Now, we didn't get that out of her by asking her. We got it by watching she was doing. Left things on the table like a pair of scissors and what have you. What's in the bottom of the freezer when you defrost it? And? Did you notice it was only women that said that? A guy defrost a freezer. Come on. Next one, please. No, sorry, it's a free idea. That's the other reason we do it. And by the way, to put a perforation on that is free. And while we're on the subject, Thank you, whoever it is on the web that created that. It wasn't that I found that on, an image search. Guys, you're driving behind a lady who's driving her car. There are 3 friends in the car. Where's she looking? Come on, you're amongst friends. She's looking at friends. There's an experiment done recently with putting a rig on 50 car rear-view mirrors driven exclusively by women and 50 exclusively by men. The men's ones, about 80% were looking at the rear view. The ladies' ones, 17% were looking at there. They were looking somewhere else. So where's this going? Why is she doing that? So I go to the insurance figures and I say, well, there must be a huge number of rear-end collisions go on then with ladies driving cars, and there aren't. Why is she doing it? Why is she looking around herself, looking at her friends, looking at the baby? Why is she doing it? Because she can. So do not tell me we're not different, because we are. We are equal under God, but we are different. And can we please get that on board? Neuroscientists, please, there must be someone in the room who can help us out on that. It's about the truth is the future. It's about finding what is actually true. The ethnography helps us on that. This helps us on that. Lay aside the political aspects and focus on the reality. Can I have the next one, please? And while we're at that, next slide, please. That's a big problem. Most designers aren't my age. Most designers are younger. And as we see things as we are, not as they are, then visual acuity, other aspects like this, why would it be different? Name one thing in a modern automobile specifically to help someone over the age of 50, which is, by the way, one of the biggest demographic groups. That's where the money is. One thing. Parking sensors? Is that really for poor old wrinkly futurists like me? Or is that for everybody? What was the other one? Heated chair? Why do your bum gets colder as you get older? We see things as we are, not as they are. Next one, please. I'm running out of time. That's your mother or your grandma trying to get into the bottle of pills that have arthritis pills in, but she can't because it's got a childproof cap on it. Now, the childproof cap is brilliant at stopping kids getting poisoned. And that little piece of packaging goes down the line and protects the pills properly. And the graphic designer's done a wonderful job of converting all that information into 5 languages in 6-point type, which means you've got to hire a 13-year-old just to read it. Everybody's done a good job, put them together. It's a crime against society, is what it is. And the designer, someone like me, is often the only person in the room that's got the perspective to be able to pull that together. You understand how this responsibility thing starts to concatenate. Next slide, please. This is something that came home like thunder to me over the last 30 years of my career, is as one starts to do what one does, the further you move into the future to do it, the more responsibility you actually get. That is actually, I think it's certainly one of the Templars' oaths. I think I saw it on Kingdom of Heaven. I think it's Ridley Scott's idea of it, but just read it. Safeguard the helpless and do no wrong. How can you do no wrong? Well, you can certainly help to safeguard the helpless. If we talk the truth, if we find the truth and we deliver it, regardless of what that truth is, it won't stop us from doing wrong. But what it will is it will inform us better in what we do. Next slide, please. So safeguard the helpless and do no wrong is something I look at on my computer. It's my screensaver when I wake up every morning. It's something I care deeply about especially safeguarding the helpless. And we've seen lots of those this morning. But the helpless are all around us. Final slide, please. As I've already commented, it's incompatible with the concept of design not to be optimistic. You have to be. But optimistic futurism is something that has to sit inside every one of us, even if the future is only next Thursday. And no matter what area of endeavor we're in, If we are meddling with the future, then we have to be those things. And by the way, if you are somebody that meddles in the future, be very careful as you step. Be very careful of your responsibilities as you do it. Or do something less dangerous. Thank you.